Good morning, everybody. Very good and delighted to see you. I'm Phinith Chanthalangsy. I'm the regional advisor of the Social Human Sciences based in Bangkok office here in Bangkok.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for having us here today. I'm Dixon. I'm from the SDG for Youth and Student Network, and I work with my colleague Elan, who you'll see in the crowd, and we are representatives on the High Level Steering Committee for Education 2030. We are very privileged to be here today to bring you the panel Co-Creating Our Roadmap to the Future, Youth Perspectives on the Recommendation. We've already had a number of speakers talk about the importance of youth engagement in this space, so thank you. You've already done half of the work of our panel for us. In addition to that, we're going to now hear some of the perspectives of our young people who are from the network, who have got a myriad of different experiences that they can bring to the table to draw some of the concrete realities of this amended recommendation for us within this space and how it will impact us in the future. In the Asia Pacific region, we have about 750 million young people aged between 15 to 24 years old, and they are hugely impacted by what is now known by the WEF as the polycrisis: unemployment, climate, all types of things impacting education within these spaces. I'm a critical education theorist, so one of the things that I like to say is that this is actually about freedom, young people's freedom. Paulo Freire, who we all know quite well within this space, says, "Freedom is not an ideal located outside of man, nor is it an idea which becomes a myth." Why? Because freedom is active. It is action. And to Freire, this action was often in his quoted statement, "Education is freedom." Education is a part of every young life in this space and is essential for the action of this freedom, which you're going to hear today. So what are the objectives of this discussion? First and foremost, to frame some of the concrete realities that the amended recommendation has for learners and young people, to comprehend some of the strengths and weaknesses of current existing initiatives in areas such as global citizenship education and education for sustainable development, and to recognise that a peaceful future can be addressed when we are able to identify that the future is here in the present, in the embodiment of young people, and how we engage them as we look forward to this amended recommendation. But first and foremost, we'd like to thank our wonderful colleagues from UNESCO for having us here, particularly Janelle and Grace, who have done so much work behind the scenes to make this possible. In addition to that, to the drafting committee who have been so wonderfully welcoming to us, and to our wonderful panellists that we have here today. Without further ado, we're going to have a little bit of a presentation from each panellist, then moving to a short Q&A, because we want to make sure that you do get your lunch, and then some finalised statements within that space. So I turn over to the wonderful Phinith to start our first question.
Thanks so much, Ellen. So this is, a panel again to help us start translating this recommendation into the implementation on the ground, with the participation and engagement with students, learners, and young activists that you are seeing on stage today. So let me start with the first question, and remember, keep at the back of your mind, the ideas that would be put forward by the young leaders here, so that we can continue the discussion in different sessions that will follow. Let me start with my neighbor here, Joo Hyun Lee, is from South Korea. She is the principal SDG facilitator in the Sustainable Development and Solution Network that has been created by the UN a couple of years ago to really harness and tap into the network of young minds and leaders around global goals of the SDGs. So I'd like to ask Joo Hyun Lee, on the concept of education for sustainable development, otherwise the acronym ESD, and you have been champion of this particular field for many years now, and you know that, of course, the ESD is very essential in this recommendation, with the cognitive, social, emotional, and behavioral competence that are needed. So I'd like to ask you, as a young person studying and working in education for sustainable development, how can we support you better to make these competences flourish among the young people?
Thank you for your question and thank you for the opportunity to speak here. Before I begin, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Jiyeon Lee from the Republic of Korea, and I'm a member of SDS and Youth Korea and UNESCO SDG4 Youth and Student Network. So I believe there are two key methods to support it. So first, we need to broaden the focus of ESD within educational policies and systems to include all aspects of sustainability, not just confined to environmental issues. In South Korea, the priority of ESD has primarily been on environmental challenges. While addressing these issues is crucial both in Korea and globally, it is equally important to incorporate all the aspects of sustainability to enhance the cognitive, social, and emotional growth. And since hosting the World Education Forum in 2015, South Korea has been making continuous efforts to ensure the inclusive and quality education and promote ESD, such as with the initiatives like carbon neutral priority schools and specialized teacher training on environmental education. And however, but I think that ESD must cover the broader areas beyond the environment. The recommendation states that the utilizing inclusive and innovative approaches, such as incorporating the physical education and sports into ESD, can instill the value of respect, cooperation, and mutual understanding, thereby promoting the cognitive and social and emotional growth. So the 2030 Agenda emphasizes the significant role of education in achieving these goals. And given the limited time to achieve these goals, I think it is really crucial to accelerate the ESD efforts that stimulate these components during this decade of action. Second, we need to enhance the collaboration among diverse stakeholders with youth organizations. For the past 2 years, I have been an active member of SDS and Youth Korea as a principal SDG facilitator. This organization collaborates with 42 universities and over 80 youth organizations, so engaging more than 3,500 youth in Korea. And we hold monthly Senate meetings and a General Assembly a semester to identify their needs and provide them the support, networking, and education in need. In 2020, SDS and Youth Korea has launched the Youth Sustainable Development Alliance of Korea, which is being called YSDA, with the support of 50 member organizations and 717 youth, declaring the youth SDGs in Korea. However, the operation of YSDA has faced its challenges as it's mainly consists of the university student who struggles with balancing their academic and organizational commitments. So this desperately shows the critical need for the support and collaboration from the stakeholders who can drive the real change. So without it, I think that you'd find it extremely difficult to achieve their goals, affecting their perception and demand for ESD, thereby ultimately hindering their cognitive and social and emotional growth. So therefore, to create an environment where young people not only learn but also flourish in this component, I believe that we must enhance policies and integrate ESD comprehensively and foster strong collaboration among various stakeholders. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that intervention, Ju. It was very good to hear. The next speaker that we have is Kavi Vada, who is from Peace for People in Nepal, where he is Program Manager. The question that we have posed to Kavi here is, in the amended recommendation, education for peace and human rights is considered basically essential to enable every person to freely exercise their own rights and the rights of others. Teachers are encouraged to commit to a culture of peace, with examples such as supporting peace through plain storytelling, as we see in ECCE, which is recommended, or peace studies in adult education, supporting civic participation. So, Kavi, as a program manager at Peace for People, how do you perceive that education for peace impacts your young people? Please provide us with some concrete examples of the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question, and thank you so much, organized team, give me this opportunity. I am Kavi Podel from Nepal. I am program manager at the Peace for People, and also I am member of SDG4 Youth and Student Network UNESCO. Uh, as the program manager at the Peace for People, I see education for peace as a transformative force in the lives of our youth. By integrating peace education into our program, we provide young people with the tools to understand and manage conflict, foster empathy, and promote inclusivity. For instance, through our storytelling initiative in early childhood care and education, children learn about different culture and perspective, which help them develop respect and understanding for others. In our youth program, we incorporate peace building activities that encourage dialogue and collaboration, teaching them to resolve dispute non-violently and work to, together towards common goals. In practical terms, we have seen how peace education has reduced in accident of bullying in school and has inspired many students to become peace ambassadors in their communities. By instilling them values early on, we are nurturing a generation that value harmony and occupied to build a more peaceful society. Our commitment to social justice is deeply embedded in all our educational initiatives. At the Peace for People, we believe that education should not only impart knowledge but also promote equity and social responsibility. One consent example in our scholarship program for underprivileged youth, by providing financial support, we enable students from marginalized communities to access quality education, breaking the cycle of poverty. Additionally, our gender equality workshop empower young girls post their education and career, challenging traditional gender roles and reducing gender-based violence. Another significant initiative is our environment education program, which teach students about sustainability and their roles in protecting the environment by engaging youth in community cleanup project and tree planet activities. We not only educate them about environmental issues, but also initially the sense of responsibility toward their community and the planet. This effort collectivity create an environment where young people feel valued, empowered, and motivated to contribute positively to society. Through education focus on social justice, we are equipping Nepal youth with the knowledge and skill to advocate for their right and the right of others, paving the way for a more just and equitable society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kapi. You remember that my colleague Libing earlier said, we have to also be reasonable, not to overload countries and ministries with all the concepts, education on, education for, peace, human rights, global citizenship education. So as you've seen, this recommendation is very inclusive, and I think the big advantage is that it is articulating very organically and conceptually all these concepts and important values in one single recommendation. And you've seen we've talked about sustainable development, peace, and now let's move to the next item, which is on gender equality. And here I'd like to turn to Shama Bulangis from the Philippines. Shama is co-chair of Transform Education, which is a coalition of gender activists. A lot of them are very young, and this is a coalition that is hosted by Yungai, the United Nations Girls Education Initiative. And I'd like to call on Shama to come forth to explain to us how you see the gender justice in this recommendation, and more precisely, what is your opinion about opportunities and challenges, both material and non-material, that are faced in education to achieve gender equality and promote peace, and how gender equality could be really advanced with this new recommendation. over to you.
Thank you. I'm going to try to keep it to 3 minutes. I'm a yapper, so I can talk all day about this. But maybe I'm definitely not going to be able to say everything, but I'm going to try to focus on a few things, especially on the challenges and the opportunities. The first one that I really want to highlight is school-related gender-based violence. And I hope that you sit with the uncomfortable truth in the same way that we are sitting with it, that it happens everywhere in schools. And a lot of the people that are vulnerable to this are young women and girls and LGBTQI learners. There is a study in Asia Pacific around the vulnerabilities of LGBTQI learners. You can see it. There's a UNESCO study on it. You can check out one of the tables there that has the data on it. But it does happen. In my city, we did a study on the prevalence of school-related gender-based violence. And we found out that 76% of the young girls that we've surveyed in all the public schools and private schools in our city have experienced school-related gender-based violence. And the most prevalent is going to school, catcalling, coming from school, from transport, from tricycles, basically. So if you go and you use and you commute, you experience that type of harassment from people around you to and from school. Within school, we have heard of, and there's 36 counts of this that we have reported of young people, these are 15 to 17-year-olds, experiencing bribery for good grades, sexual bribery for good grades in exchange for good grades. These are very alarming numbers, and it's happening, and let's not be in denial about this. What we try to push is that if there are no reports in your school around school-related gender-based violence, that means you are not doing anything at all, that your grievance mechanisms are not working. One opportunity for this is we have been advocating for a peer grievance system. We found out that 29% of the children feel that they can report, but all of these people who say that they can report only theoretically think that they can report. Those who actually have experienced school-related gender-based violence say that they cannot report or they don't feel safe enough to report. But if it's a peer that is able to talk to them about it, they are much more willing to report on the cases of school-related gender-based violence. So that establishment of young people talking to each other about our own experiences, I feel is very powerful. Another recommendation, and I'll end my point on SRGBV on this, is we found out that a lot of these children in our focus group discussions with them find comprehensive sexuality education, especially the points on healthy relationships, communication, and nonviolent communication, to be helpful forms of social and emotional learning skills that they would need to learn, and they would want young men to learn as well, in order for us to develop healthy relationships all throughout and prevent gender-based violence. There has been a lot of studies that CSE is one of the tools that we have readily in order to prevent gender-based violence, not just in schools. Another thing that I want to push and I want to highlight as a challenge is that while there are a lot of programming on school-related gender-based violence, CSE, gender equality in schools, we do still not have a lot of classrooms and not a lot of schools as well. My mom is a teacher. I come from a really small town in the Philippines. It's an island. It's part of like the northeastern part of the bigger island called Mindanao. We were just hit by, 2 years ago, we were hit by a really huge typhoon. And because of that, schools were closed for 3 months. My mom's classroom is completely destroyed. I don't know if it has been renovated yet because money hasn't come for the renovation of the school. All of the modules were destroyed. So when my mom and I went back to her classroom, they had to print everything out. All the grades had to be reset because there were no spaces for them to store their modules. So there's also a necessity for us to be able to support our teachers in these material things, and not just in not just in raising their salaries, which is very, very important. A lot of them are very overworked, but also that there needs to be material support apart from lifelong learning and apart from apart from training support that we are always talking around how to support our teachers. I think I have to stop there with the time. I have a lot of things to say about like technological and vocational education as well, etc. But we can definitely talk about that a lot more in some of the panels and in some of the conversations that we have in networking.
Thank you very much, Shamla. Brilliant intervention. We move on now to Veronica Pereira, who is from Timor-Leste and has come from work with the Ministry of Education there, of which I think some of her colleagues are in the crowd, so hopefully they're going to clap very loudly for her, where she works on the multilingual program. One of the things that we pose to Veronica here in relation to the work that she is doing is that the recommendation encourages states to be respectful of identity and knowledge in areas such as language, history, culture, and tradition. Digital competencies are also considered essential for social, economic, and political participation, and sometimes integrating those is not always easy, as we've heard some comments on that previously. So as a member of the Ministry of Education in Timor-Leste, Veronica, what examples have you seen of how these competencies impact schools, and what resourcing challenges are faced when trying to access things such as digital tools?
Okay, thank you, Ellen. Once again, my name is Veronica Pereira, and I am the coordinator for mother tongue-based multilingual education for Ministry of Education in Timor-Leste, and also a youth member for SDG for Youth and Student Network. First of all, I appreciate the respect and acknowledge of language, culture, and tradition rating in this UNESCO recommendation concerning education for international understanding and cooperation. So as a key person for MTV MLE program in Timor-Leste, I see how language play essential role in early learning in Timor-Leste and how it represents the identity of the nation. Meanwhile, using mother tongue at school can also be a way to preserve the cultural identity and respect the origin of the children. So in today's era, digital and technology play essential roles in every part, especially in education. So Ministry of Education in Timor-Leste acknowledges the importance of digital in education. Ministry, despite challenges, try to work with partners such as UNICEF, New Zealand and Australian Development Program, and other partnerships to provide basic computer, tablet, and basic training to ensure schools and children able to access to technology. Ministry of Education itself, through Department of Curriculum and Training, try to use blended learning for training of trainers and teachers. Hopefully we will start implementing next year to reduce the cost in training and more sustainable to be accessed. However, challenges that minister face are a majority of teachers in Timor-Leste from K to K-12 is still have lacking knowledge in basic digital literacy, such as how to use computers, just in that basic, especially those in rural areas. Majority of teachers do not have like any electronic devices, such as computer, laptop, tablets, etc. Only a few of them are on smartphones. And internet connections is a very huge problem in Timor-Leste, especially in rural areas. It's very hard. So therefore, actions plan will be needed to provide a lot of basic technology training for teachers and provide them more facility. I think that is very needed and essential for education, especially those in rural areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all these insights. Veronica has just talked about digitalization, but also the challenges of inclusion related to it. Since we want to really engage with the room, I propose, Ellen, if you agree, that we move into the second round of questions that will really focus now on the how. We've heard from colleagues and friends here about coalition, network building, engaging with policies for systematic approach, but also peer-to-peer approach to promote gender equality, inclusion with digitalization. So all these ideas, wonderful initiatives on the ground already. What is it that is missing so that you can really implement, or let's say scale up or strengthen or expand these initiatives using the recommendation that your member states, your ministries have adopted? So how do you think we can really make the how happen to improve your impact on the ground? Anyone wants to go first? Veronica?
Yes, I think we faced a lot of difficulties as we go, and how the implementations. If I look at the youth perspective, I think I know youth lead can be challenges in education, especially when they have to deal with school leaders or teachers who have been teaching for a long time or older than them. For example, in Timor-Leste, in our program, we have local mentors who have to work close to teachers and school leaders in the schools. So when they try to go to classroom and observe classroom, it can be hard because it like for the point of view, say they are like in terms of experience wise in the classroom. So I think involving more youth in that, like leading activities also, that will be important. I know that many young people have great ideas and innovative, but no chance to put them into action. So therefore, some strategies that we can do are, for example, for you to be well trained in parts that they really need to be mastered in, enhance their capacity in technology so they can be able to share and pass into teachers, especially those in rural areas, and putting youth voices in the table, such as through dialogues on televisions, discussion, and sharing their innovative ideas, and let you lead activities that lead to the important decision making, align with the 21st century skills. So have youth in the innovation, in the national or ministry level to lead some important role to show their capacity, active, innovative, and express their skills. I think those are important as well. Meanwhile, train them to be a good leader. Involve youth in the big conferences and summits for them to gather and exchange ideas internationally and networking. Those will be ideas to prepare you today for better leader tomorrow, to have their voices heard in national grassroots. This current opportunity is a golden opportunity for some of us youth here to learn, involve, and aware of what is going on in the region.
I can go so that we can go like. I think one thing that I would like to really commend about the recommendation is the recognition of CSE, and like that to me that was like huge because one, we can so technically the Philippines actually has the RH law, which already includes like CSE and the implementation of CSE in schools. But having that recognized across is amazing because then member states are monitored specifically on their implementation of CSE. So I think there's an opportunity there for the UN to be able to support in the technical guidance of that, but then for member states to be able to implement and to actually do a whole review of their education policies, their educational materials, to check for the anti-racist biases, the anti-gender biases that there are the gender discriminatory biases that are in their educational materials as well as an analysis of the levels of inclusion in schools. Maybe I know this might be pushing it a little bit, but for LGBTQI students as well, the level of inclusion of LGBTQI teachers and the way that we are representing different marginalized identities within the school as well, as a microcosm of society. I think one thing as well just to push the youth voices point is Sierra Leone did this youth advisory group within their civic education and I think education ministry, which I think can be replicated easily by member states, having like a very specific advisory group made up of young people who are working on a diverse set of issues along and representing diverse sets of identities, because we also don't want to just play identity politics. We also want to have different issues represented. To have that in order to push for issues and solutions that are actually driven by young people, or young people feel that would impact them. I think something that I would suggest to Transforming Education Summit, or at least a Transforming Education work, because it has been recognized as one of the high impact SDG initiatives, is to also have that collaboration with other high impact initiatives, because there should be intersections across these things. I don't know, and I don't see the many different connections between the 12 different high impact initiative things. The high impact initiatives together. So maybe there's an opportunity for the UN to kind of do that. I'm sorry, I'm a bit all over the place with like local, international, national suggestions, but these are some things that we can probably look into. So let me just try to put forward as well last two things. The first one is that in country there should be a coordination between, for example, on CSE, the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education, including the Ministry of Gender. Like a multi-agency collaboration would be important. In the Philippines, for example, the Department of Education is tasked to do CSE, but the Department of Health also has gender-based violence prevention modules, which probably can be leveraged by the Department of Education already for that kind of multi-agency implementation of comprehensive sexuality education, especially as it addresses school-related gender-based violence. And last but not the least, the recommendation really put forward the importance of non-formal education as well. So, and I'm not just going to say this because Sir is my kababayan over here, but the importance of media and of language as well in terms of teaching and the use of social media influencers. I feel like BTS has probably like pushed more on internationalization and learning about Korean culture and other people's cultures than being in school. And that's not a bad thing, right? All of these should be complementary to each other. So there's a need to work with non-traditional actors as well. So maybe governments and member states can probably work with social media influencers in order to push messaging, but in their own words, so that they can also use their own platforms in their own words to be able to put forward progressive and human rights messaging out there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shama. We will be moving to our Q&A pretty shortly, but I think one of the things that's quite helpful to consider within this space is that multi-stakeholderism is clearly being pointed out as the key way of the future for young people within this context. I know it's been something that the high-level steering committee has been talking about quite a bit. There was a comment that was made to me recently by an education diplomat who I think was from Norway, who said, you know, we opened up the UN spaces and women were able to come into that space after it had been male-dominated. We saw civil society come to the table in that context, and now young people are here in this place. But that requires there to be a connection between the policy level at national level all the way into the context of intergovernmental engagement, which I think these young people pointed out very, very well. Anyway, thank you very much to all of our panelists for that wonderful part. I'm going to turn over to Phinith for our Q&A section.
Excellent, thank you so much. And I think we are quite good on time. And we hope that at the end of the session, we can also show the video that would also echo voices coming from youth, you know, from Asia Pacific as well, beyond our 4 representatives here. So I would like to turn to you now and also invite my colleagues who haven't spoken in the second round also to come in for question and answers, clarification, engagement, or any proposals from your side, having heard, you know, the ideas and the networks and coalition that already exist nationally, regionally. Is there any comments from the room at this point? Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I think it's a very interesting panel and bringing youth and their voices.
If you can just briefly present.
Sorry, yes,
yourself.
I'm Prem Kumar De Silva, actually representing higher education sector in Sri Lanka. So I'm also the member of University Grant Commission. I'm also actually teaching sociology at University of Colombo. I think this is a very interesting panel, and I listened to that because though I'm a bit of a, not young, but I'm always dealing with the young people in my universities, So that's very interesting. So I think having listened to you all, it's really interesting what Lee actually talking about is how to strike a balance between basically academic and the other extracurriculars as well as the bringing peace and gender education and so on, because universities are overloaded by academic programs and so on and so forth. But this is very important. We cannot really ignore that fact that we had to bring in. So there actually in Sri Lankan experience, if I say something about it, but we have really considered the gender very seriously, because if you look at the university population in Sri Lanka, but all over the world, you see the female domination is quite evident in, particularly in the social science faculties and so on and so forth. So we have actually implemented gender centers in all the universities, all 17 state universities in Sri Lanka. So they are quite closely working with the academia as well as the students population. As well as when it comes to in terms of peace, actually we have established all the 17 universities, social reconciliation and the harmony centers. All these harmony centers are working quite closely with academic staff and the student population as well as the communities. So we implemented that actually 2 years back under the directions of University Grant Commission of Sri Lanka. So there are a lot to do, as you said. There are gender-based violence going on, there are bullying going on, there are ragging going on. So though we need a lot of work to do, actually these recommendations are welcome. More or less, these are a bit of implementing, but we need more intervention in this particular recommendations to be implemented in our respective countries. Thank you.
Thanks so much. So there's space to do probably South-South collaboration with Sri Lanka and some of these initiatives that we've heard. As somebody else has asked for the floor? Yes. And then we go to the gentleman slightly on the right.
Hi, I'm Esrat. I work with Man International in Laos, and I have a question on the non-traditional actors. So my question is, in terms of influencers, young people are kind of reaching out to many different influencers, right? So do you have any suggestions for us in terms of how to engage with influencers in terms of, whether it's TikTok or other social media? And I mean, who do we engage with for young people to listen to them? Is it BTS? Is it someone else? We are very kind of, lost in terms of what appeals to young people these days. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let us go to the gentleman here, and then we can come back to the panel.
Thank you, my youth colleagues. Though I'm not in stage, but I'm also youth, I believe. So I would like to share the perspective of our country. I'm from Bangladesh. I'm working with UNESCO Dhaka office. I'm Raju. So though my point pretty much similar to Isra, but I will go with last. But the good practice in Bangladesh, Ministry of Youth and Sports has a committee, and they call it Youth Council. But the challenge is the Youth Council is work with national level and district level, but they are not going to the sub-district level, the community level. But good practice is they are working for youth perspectives. Like they supported to the Ministry of Education on integrating CSE in the textbook. And Bangladesh government has introduced a new curriculum on education, and there are a standalone subject on well-being. So health issues is covered, but due to the social norms, that curriculum are not implemented in the schools. I mean, what exactly elaborate in the textbook. So my request to colleagues who are in stage, what your suggestions to other countries to implement a good practice to deliver a way to the students and the community on the CSC. And another thing is, yes, BTS is pretty much, famous in our country as well. So I don't know, we are focused on social media, especially in the Facebook and YouTube, but how other things like TikTok and BTS also promote our programs more? Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much. So, Ellen, what do you think? We should maybe start with the two colleagues who haven't spoken in the second round. Kavi, you want to start? Or Drew? Since we are talking about a lot of BTS here from South Korea.
Thank you for your questions and feedbacks. And I never knew that everyone would love Sharma's BTS mentioned this much. But just a small tidbit of me is that I'm a Korean, but I'm not really into the idol culture, so I'm so sorry. Maybe Sharma would know better, so maybe you, if you want to talk about K-pop idols, maybe talking to Sharma would help. And I think I was so impressed by your feedbacks, and thank you for your precious feedback. It was really impressive. And one thing that I really noticed and realized while doing the youth activities was that youth in this area usually do this work out of their passions and interests, not necessarily as a career, just like me. So just like everyone here. So it is really important to motivate them. I think the key would be the motivation to involve their engagement. And to involve their engagement, you need to motivate them. And to motivate them, you need to involve them to an occasion like this, just like Veronica said a while ago. You have to engage more and more youth, even though you don't know what they're doing, what their perspectives are. You have to engage them first to make a bigger involvement and bigger movement. And I think that would help later on when the time passes, after more and more engagement, that would help you all to understand the youth perspective. And yeah, I think that would be really meaningful to let the youth to participate. And one thing, I might be a little off topic here, but I think youth also need education for the education. Because for my master's thesis, I have researched into how ESD influences the cognition and awareness and behavior and behavior changes of the students. And that turned out that showed a decline in the trend of knowledge to the actual behavior application. So I think there should be concrete and consistent ESD policies and curricula in the system. Thank you very much. Kabi, over to you.
Okay, any one of you? Yeah.
Okay, so to answer, I love Plan, by the way. We have worked a lot with, TE. As TE, we've worked a lot with Plan, and we actually have an Education Shifts Power project right now with Plan to implement our CSE and SRGBV recommendations in my city. So yes. In terms of influencers and engaging with influencers, my brain is not organized at all for this one, but first, there is a way to there is a group right now. I was looking through it on my iPad. I can't find them right now, but I can share them with you. There is a group that does gathering influencers that are already influencers and already have their platform, and talks to them about social issues. So for example, And you would probably learn more about this through the work that Spotlight Initiative does. So the Spotlight Initiative is an initiative to end violence against women and girls. They do this program with influencers that already have platforms and talks to them about gender-based violence, ending violence against women and girls, and helps them work through their understanding of gender-based violence and not just giving them, these are the messages that we want you to put out, go and put it on your TikToks. It's really like a deep understanding of the issue so that they can talk to it based on the way that they already talk to their youth in their platform. That's one. The second is the possible focus on micro-influencers. Sometimes 7K followers is more influential than 100K followers, especially if they have influence over a certain area. So in my city, for example, we have like micro-influencers, like 2 of them. They're LGBTQI people, they're tattoo artists, and so sometimes they would put out, things on their social media around the things that we do with Girls Congress, on our SRGBV work, on our work with LGBTQI campaigns, on our pride events, etc. So that type of engagement with micro-influencers, I feel, is also very important, that level of community relationship. In terms of implementation of CSE, I think that, I don't know if Bangladesh, and I'm sorry, I should know this, but I don't know if Bangladesh already has a law around it. It does help to have that. Like in the Philippines, we have a law that mandates the Department of Education to implement comprehensive sexuality in schools. That's helpful. And at the same time, that means that data is gathered around comprehensive sexuality education. And if it's not, then, if there's a law, you can probably push for that. But then also at the same time, that longitudinal studies around comprehensive sexuality education and its relation to preventing gender-based violence, its relation to healthier relationships, social emotional learning skills, building better people, etc. It's probably easier, and linking it to learning outcomes as well would probably be easier to measure as well. But everything needs to be aligned. I'm so sorry. Yes.
There we go. We have a roadmap already. Last words, Veronica, and then I pass over to Ellen. Yeah.
Me. We're almost out of time, Veronica, so hopefully people can come and talk to you a little bit later. But I just want to really thank our panelists for being here today and sharing their experiences. I think it's very valuable to be able to have you in this space and this time, and to have such honest interpretations of what is happening on the ground for you within this context. I also thank everyone who's posed a question within this space, and I would really like to challenge people that while influencers are a key element in talking to young people, still verbally talking to young people is something that is always a wonderful skill, and we have so many educators within this room or people involved in education as a teacher that you have those skills and you have a passion for engaging with young people. One thing that I encourage is pooling your knowledge on how your countries are engaging with young people will give you increased ideas of policy implementation within those spaces, but also thinking about how policy can be disseminated among young people, because this is about young people's freedom. It is about the way that young people are able to engage in education actively as a citizen. We have global citizen education because people are learning about all the elements of their citizenship in their national level and in their global level. And we also got to say in the element in connection with digital education, we've got to not replace face-to-face interconnectivity with algorithms that only do that for us on our behalf. So thank you very much to our panelists who've done an absolute wonderful job within this space. Phinith, do you want to add some additional thoughts?
Maybe you can introduce the video, and then we can launch the video to conclude.
We were thinking of launching the video while everyone's going off to lunch because we're aware that the time is a little bit short here, but thank you everyone.
All right, so I think, thank you so much for your insights. Just key words from my side, just to conclude. I think colleagues and friends here have highlighted a lot about intergenerational dialogues and collaboration. I think our education systems do need that kind of interface between generations that could enrich a lot of us, each of us, in all the practices and policies as well. And then the last message is probably to open doors and windows of our education system, opening it to non-formal education, to sport, for instance, and mental health, but also to communities, influencers. Education should happen everywhere. And I think this is one of the key messages from this recommendation. And we've seen illustrated also in the initiatives that are taking place on the ground at the moment. And we would like to invite you to really engage with the ministries, the educators that are in the room, to really help us to open doors and windows moving forward. Thank you so much.